One of the interesting concepts in the book is single-threaded leadership, and that isn't really obvious. I think many companies think of a skilled manager as being able to handle multiple responsibilities. I mean, that's sort of what makes them a good manager. They can keep a lot of balls in the air and not have any of them drop. Why is single-threaded leadership important, and how did Amazon achieve that?
Well, it took a while for Amazon to achieve it, but why I'll get to that in a second, but why it's important is if that something is big enough to be worth doing, you do want someone who wakes up every day when it's their sole job to figure out how can I create this product or value for customers and just be immersed in that customer experience. And same thing with their team. You'll come up with something quicker and actually you most often higher quality than you would if it's your part-time job. So Dave Limp, who's the SVP of devices, has a great quote where he says the best way to fail at inventing something is to make it someone's part-time job. And so the way Amazon develops products by starting in services, you start from the customer experience and then work backwards from that. You have to really get deeply immersed into what is the experience I'm trying to create. And that's hard to do when you're context shifting to something very different. And especially if what you're trying to create is a small business right now, it may be very large in the future, but it will always suffer. It'll be number 4 or 5 on your priority list you're also running some very large businesses on the side. So even for senior executives, and many times Amazon has taken very senior executives from large businesses and put them on a non-existent business and said, can you go create this? And that would be a career breaker at some companies. And a few examples are with digital. They took Steve Kessel, who was running the physical books, music, and video business, which was 77% of Amazon's business when he switched to go figure out how to do digital. We didn't really know this. We were going to build the Kindle at this point. We didn't know if we would do music first or video, but it was Steve moving from one of the biggest jobs at Amazon, along with Bill Carr, my author, to a group that, a handful of people saying, now you need to go figure out digital. And that actually took about 1.5 years, 2 years to go figure out the components we needed to build. That would not have happened if Steve and Bill also had to run this very large cash cow for Amazon. So that's just an example of a single-threaded leader. How you get there, you have to have you have to have two things. You have to have a technology infrastructure that allows you to separate these things, and you don't have to go into too much detail there. You have to deliberately set that up, and if you see dependencies, you need to remove them. But the second thing is you need to teach people how to be autonomous and take control of their own destiny. And in some organizations, if they're used to being told by someone else, here's what you should do next, or you present your plan, I'm going to go review everything and I'm going to tweak it and make sure it's right. And it's not really your plan. You have to give people and teach them how they can be autonomous and run on their own. And then finally make sure that the person who's working on that opportunity has the skill sets and experience sets, is commensurate with the opportunity at hand. You can't have a junior product manager, for instance, start Amazon's digital business, which would become Kindle, Prime Video, and Prime Music. You had to have someone like a Steve Kessel and a Bill Carr who knew what success looked like. You had to have someone like Andy Jassy when he went over to web services. That there was no revenue there, but he then created this cloud. He created cloud computing didn't even exist then, so he and his team created the cloud computing industry. But Andy had just left as Jeff's shadow. And he could have had any job in the company he wanted to, but he went to this experimental thing that had a high chance of failing, but created cloud computing. But he was a single-threaded leader on that.
I hope you enjoyed this Brainfluence brief. If you didn't, help me out by telling me why in a comment. But if you did find some value, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. The full episode is available on YouTube and audio outlets like Apple, Spotify, and Google. Visit rogerdooley.com/podcast for a formatted text version plus links and other resources. Thanks for tuning in.